Good evening, SportsZonians. How's everybody doing out there tonight? I am Mike Aglioloro. I am your host for this is Sports Zone. Coming to you live like we do each and every week here via the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Radio Network. We got a good show for you tonight. Back in the swing of things. Last week was the first show of 2019 for us, but we started a little later. Tonight we're hoping we are back at our regular time, and we're hoping to have both Dave Mason and Erich on the program here tonight. We got a lot to talk about. We got the wild card weekend in the NFL, Cowboys, Chargers, Colts, and the Eagles all advanced to the next round. Best thing, thankfully, the Cowboys were able to beat the Seahawks only 13 years later. And Eagles, of course, beat the Bears on Sunday night. You had the Colts with the upset over the Houston Texans. And that was the one that I wound up calling last week. I knew that one was going to wind up happening. I don't trust the Texans yet. Andrew Luck back to his old self, give him a lot of credit on that one. And then the Chargers beating the Ravens, making Lamar Jackson look like a helpless rookie, unfortunately. So you had that. And then we will look at the weekend games, the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Eric comes in, and maybe Dave too. We will talk about the national championship game from last night, where Clemson handily defeated Erich's beloved Alabama Tide. So we will hopefully get Erich's reaction on that one. I have some baseball I would like to talk about because the Mets had a pretty busy weekend, and they did a whole lot. And it's like the duck who's moving very slowly on the water, but if you look under the water, you see the legs moving at a mile a minute and going real fast, but he's not really going anywhere, and that's what I feel the Mets want to do this weekend with their moves. And we'll start with that. Actually, what I want to start with first. So I was a wrestling fan when I was in high school and when I was in college, and I stopped watching wrestling after that. And for those who follow me, the way I started doing this show is I was actually the co-host with a guy. We would do Friday nights, and he liked to talk a lot about wrestling. And I still follow it from time to time. I do not watch it anywhere close to as much as I used to. If I watch it once or twice a year, that's a lot for me. I'll watch some clips every now and then on YouTube, but I don't really get invested in stuff anymore because I don't have a dog in the fight anymore. I don't. For whatever reason, I've just moved past that in my life. But I am no longer a fan of wrestling, but I do consider myself a proponent of professional wrestling. And one thing I wound up watching is not really WWE too much anymore, but the independent scene wrestling-wise, and the second and the third tier promotions that are out there. Impact Wrestling came around after the demise of WCW. They've reached the point where there's no chance in hell they will ever be able to compete with WWE. Ring of Honor had a chance to really kind of give them some real competition about 10 years ago, but I think the ship has sailed on that one. You have the Japan wrestling organizations, which probably in terms of pure wrestling are probably some of the best wrestling in the world right now. There is a show on YouTube called Being the Elite with members of the Elite, which was formerly part of the Bullet Club. And members of that organization have now broken off and started their own professional wrestling company. And it's interesting to see how it will play out, truthfully, if it winds up getting any sort of real traction. The time is definitely right. If you look around the world of pro wrestling, it definitely looks like the majority of the fans want something that is not WWE, but maybe on that level in terms of performance. And these guys have a real shot to break through. But like the XFL in football, like the AAF in football, and any of these startup organizations, they have a very limited window with which they can really gain a following, gain an audience, and gain credibility. And the next year is really going to be crucial to them. These guys had the All-In pay-per-view, which was backed by Ring of Honor in early September, I believe it was. I didn't watch that. I've seen some clips of it, but I didn't watch that. Apparently went over really well. They just announced today their first two dates, first two shows they're going to have as an organization. And they announced Chris Jericho is going to be there. The guy who used to be Neville in WWE is going to be in there. So I think they're going about it the right way in terms of bringing in a lot of talented guys and not doing what organizations like WCW and TNA have done in the past, which is try to build their name off the backs of WWE stars who are past their prime. Obviously, Jericho is past his prime, but Jericho never really had the ego to the point where someone like Hulk Hogan did, where he always had to be the center of attention. So at the very least, I think they are in much better shape than any other startup wrestling organization has ever been. And it'll be very interesting to see where they go from here. And if you ever get a chance and you're on YouTube and you want to watch something funny, Being the Elite, they have some pretty funny skits. I mean, I didn't know what it was when I went to watch it, but these guys have some pretty, as good production as you could have for obviously making videos off your iPhone. But they actually have turned it into a show where you have like an opening credit sequence and you have like theme music for the show and everything. And the opening credit montage is like something out of a 90s sitcom. And they have skits and bits and everything. And it makes me laugh. Makes me laugh. This has been a hard week, so I just wanted to throw that one out there while we wait for Dave and Eric. But I guess now is a good time. And hello to cousin Dave, who I see out there. Hope you're good. Let's talk a little bit about the Mets moves. So when last we really talked about the Mets, so they brought in Robinson Cano. They brought in Edwin Diaz, Jeurys Familia, brought him back. They've brought in Wilson Ramos at the catcher position. And me and Eric have kind of gone on length, where I say that thus far, this has been the most exciting offseason we've seen out of the Mets in many, many years. And Eric kind of laughed at me when he said that. He said, well, we'll see what happens for the rest of the offseason, because if they don't really do anything, then it doesn't really mean anything. And he's right about that. And you look at what the Mets' needs were. You needed at least one more bat, and you needed another reliever in the pitch. I said I didn't think Jeurys Familia was a bad signing, but unless you can really pair that with another legitimate setup guy, you haven't really done anything. And that brings us to what the Mets have done over the last month. So the moves the Mets have made over the last month is signing Raji Davis and Gregor Blanco to minor league free agent deals with invites to spring training. And then over the weekend, they traded two not real well-known prospects, and Bobby Wool, who was acquired in the Familia trade from Oakland last year. They traded them to Milwaukee, and they got Keon Broxton, who's basically Juan Lagares 2.0. He has a great glove in center field, but he's not really a big offensive threat. He has hit for 20 home runs and stolen 20 stolen bases in a single season, which I gotta be honest, it's not really as impressive as it used to be. It's nice to see that he has a lot of speed, but we talked on this show before how guys who can hit 20 home runs are in a good deal of abundance right now in baseball. So it's nice they could do that. He did have a .220 batting average in 2017, which I believe was his last full season in the major leagues. He wasn't really in the majors much last season because the Brewers brought in Christian Yelich and Lorenzo Cain, and they didn't really have a place for him on the roster. So the Mets got that. Now, between these three guys, and we'll say here before we go any further, between these three guys, Raji Davis, Gregor Blanco, and Keon Broxton, you have good depth moves. That's all they are. Good depth moves. Guys who could be fourth and fifth outfielders on your team's roster. Maybe help your organizational depth in AAA. The problem is always, and the Mets have done this time and time again, is you will take pieces that are supposed to be organizational depth and pass them off as legitimate starting players. None of these guys are legitimate starters at this point in the game, as far as I am concerned. Keon Braxton, I'll be honest, as of right now, I would trust him more than I would trust Juan Lagares. Because Juan Lagares has a gold glove caliber center fielder, great, never really developed with the bat, and has been hurt for a bulk of the last 2 or 3 seasons. So Keon Braxton checks all the boxes that Juan Lagares has checked, except thus far, he has stayed a lot healthier than Lagares has. So I'm okay with Braxton as a signing. He's not a legitimate starting center fielder in my eyes right now. What do I consider a legitimate starting center fielder? A guy who can, maybe I'm asking for too much here. Legitimate starting center fielder is someone who can give you the total package. A guy who can give you a good glove in center field on the defensive side of the ball, and a guy who can hold his own at the plate, not a guy who strikes out 187 times and walks 40 times, which I believe Braxton actually did at one point. So that's what we have there. And then the rest of the moves the Mets made, they traded 3 lower-level prospects to the Houston Astros, and they got J.D. Davis, a guy who was ranked as high as number 15 on prospect lists in all of Major League Baseball as recently as 2017. He did have a somewhat extended stay with the Astros in 2017. Did not do great. Was not really on the Major League team for most of last season because obviously the Astros have a lot of depth there. They didn't really need him too much. But he's a guy who's been able to rank at AAA. So he's a quad A player, which is something that you generally call a player who too good for AAA, not good enough for the majors. That's what I think of when I hear J.D. Davis's track record thus far. So that's who they got. And then they traded Kevin Plawecki, the catcher, for 2 minor league prospects. I think one of them may wind up starting in AAA, and the other one is a lower-level guy. Actually, now that I think about it, I think one is a hitter, one is a pitcher. Pitcher got shelled in a couple of appearances last year for the Padres before the Padres traded him to the Indians. So these are depth pieces. And then, of course, the Mets wound up signing Hector Santiago to a minor league contract where he gets $2 million if he winds up making the big league roster to start the season. If this is all the Mets are going to do for the rest of the season, the Mets have not done anything this offseason because you still got some of the same holes. Did they fill a hole bringing in Cano? Yes, they filled a short-term hole. He is not a long-term solution. Did they fill a hole bringing in Edwin Diaz to be your closer? To me, that is yet to be determined. He has been one of the best closers in baseball for 2 seasons, pitching in Seattle. To me, and to a lot of other people, that is so much different than pitching in Citi Field, in Queens, where the microscope will be on you. Every time you go out to that mound, every time you do something wrong, you will hear it from the crowd. He's never been under that type of scrutiny before. I want to believe he can handle it. And again, he has the tools, he has the stuff. Absolutely. Let's see if he could do that before we anoint him the savior in the bullpen. What did I say at the beginning? You needed 3 relievers. We got 2 of them. You got Diaz, you got Familia. And then you got Ramos at catcher. Listen, the catching options were not very exciting. Even JT Realmuto, I did not consider a very exciting choice. But you got the catcher. You still don't really have a solid middle of the order because if you look at this lineup right now, unless Peter Alonso comes up and can wind up hitting 25 to 30 home runs right off the bat, which we know, you can't count on that. You can't count on that from a rookie. I want to believe this Alonso guy is pretty good. or I want to believe he's an all-star caliber offensive first baseman. I don't believe if he is, we're going to see that in his rookie season. I think there's going to be a lot of growing pains to go along with that. So you got Alonso, Dominic Smith, Todd Frazier, Jeff McNeil, maybe this J.D. Davis guy. Some combination of that is going to be your first base. At third base, you're going to have some combination of Frazier, Davis, and McNeil. Second and short, you got Cano and Rosario. Corner outfielders, you got Nimmo, you got Michael Conforto. And then you have some combination of Keon Broxton, Juan Lagares, Gregor Blanco, and Raji Davis in center field. That is not a playoff lineup, folks. It's not. And, the people who say that the Mets have had a really good offseason thus far are leaving out the fact that Bryce Harper and Manny Machado are still out there. Mets have not made one play for them, as far as anybody can tell. But both the Phillies and the Nationals seem in on at least one of those guys. And the Phillies, we know, would try for both of them. Yes, Juan Lagares is still on the team, Dave. He is. I personally would have been fine if they tried to trade Lagares and Plawecki in the same deal and maybe see if he'd have gotten something like I don't think he would have gotten a lefty reliever for him. Maybe he could have gotten a pretty decent right-handed reliever. And let's look at that relief market, because in the last week, David Robertson has come off the board. He signed with the Philadelphia Phillies. I see that. Wow. Be quiet, David. David, I love you. And Happy New Year to you and Nancy. Hope you guys are good. Late Merry Christmas and all that stuff to you guys. Hope you guys are good. But don't. You know what you're doing. Don't do it. Anyway, so David Robertson signing with Philly. Zach Britton goes back to the Yankees. Kelvin Escobar, I can't remember what team he signed. He signed with the White Sox yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. So the relief names are going off the board. Justin Wilson, very good left-handed pitcher, former Yankee. Spent the last few seasons with the Tigers, got traded to the Cubs at one point. I think he's actually spent the last couple seasons with the Cubs, if I'm not mistaken. He is still out there. It would be nice if the Mets could get him, but apparently there's about 7 or 8 teams interested in Justin Wilson. They have that. They need another reliever. They need another reliever. I'm sorry. Hector Santiago was, in my opinion, a very good starting pitcher about 3 or 4 years ago. He fell off a cliff. When he was with the White Sox, he was very good. He went to the Angels, had 1 or 2 decent seasons, if I'm not mistaken. And then the injuries kind of took their toll, because the Angels get hit with as many injuries in their starting staff as most people feel the Mets do on their entire roster. So Santiago definitely fell victim to some of that. But they moved him into a relief role, and my honest opinion is he will probably wind up being a reliever. At least that's probably what they brought him in for. Unless Vargas really sucks, and then Santiago will take over Vargas. Not that I think either of them are great options at this point, but the fact is, you got all these relievers out there, and you're really not going to try to sign one. And then there was something on Facebook, I don't know where it came from, but the idea that the Mets payroll, after you take out David Wright's salary, because they just released him and they agreed to some sort of, Mets should have went after Robertson. Yes, they should have been. Yes, I do agree with that. And then you get, as I started to say, when you take out David Wright's salary, and you take out Dwayne Cespedes' salary, because you figure they should get a large amount of money back for David Wright's salary, because he's got, and Cespedes is going to miss the majority of the season. You get that. Apparently, the Mets are only spending $120 million on payroll this year, and you're basically, it's being reported now that you ain't even trying to make any other moves. And with that, it is fitting. And while I am talking about this, here comes Erich Dresser. Erich, how you doing tonight?
Doing good, Mike. Doing good. How you doing?
All right. We're going to go back to some of what I was talking about in a minute, but are you okay? Are you?
Oh yeah, Bama. I mean, I'm all right. We got beat by a better team. Listen, they outplayed us. They wanted it more than us. They came out. They disguised some schemes that Tua wasn't ready for. And Trevor Lawrence looked fantastic. He looked like the number one QB in the country over even the three guys that were up for the Heisman. So I mean, he played fantastic. Clemson's D played fantastic, and they deserve the win. I mean, this is the worst Nick Saban loss he's ever had, but I also think that next year he's gonna punish people. He's gonna punish his own team for it, and I think they're gonna come out with a fire lit under their ass. And I mean, if you really think about it, out of the last 10 years, Alabama has 5 national championships, and they've been to the title game 7 times. I mean, I think they've had a pretty good run. You can't win them all, and my hat goes off to Dabo and Clemson. They really did take it to Alabama last night.
I will say, and my cousin in the chat room, to kind of throw back to something you said a week or two ago, the quote is, "No more tanking for Tua." Do you have a response to that?
Oh no, you're still tanking for Tua. Because Lawrence is a year behind Tua, so you've got to tank for Tua first. You can't. He's still going to be a fantastic quarterback. He's got a great head on his shoulders, and like I said, the key to Tua is going to be how he bounces back next season. And if he bounces back and he plays even better, and they win a national championship next year, he's going to go away winning 2 national championships and going to the title game 3 times. Once as a freshman, once as a sophomore, once as a senior. You know what I mean? So I mean, or junior. So I mean, he's going to have a great resume. But it's, can he bounce back? It's, can he not let the way this season ended affect him? And really, a lot is on the line for him next season. But I still think that next year he's going to be probably the top quarterback coming out. I really do. I think that he is going to be that special, and he could be that special. Like I said, he's got all the physical tools and skills, and he plays like an NFL quarterback would need to play today. He's mobile enough to move, and yet his accuracy is tremendous. And I know he threw a couple picks last night, but overall, throughout the course of the season, if you look, I mean, he was up, I think, over around 70% for completion percentage, and it's pretty damn good. So some NFL team's gonna want that, and they're gonna tank for Tua is still alive next season. Don't worry.
Okay. Now let me ask you something here. Now, you know how much I know about college football, but it kind of seems, at least to me, being outside looking in type of guy that I am here on this, it seems like there's not as much of a stigma for losing a championship game in college as there is in the NFL. Would you agree or disagree with that? What I mean by that is that, like, it's easier to bounce back from a national championship loss for a college team than an NFL team, and I think part of that would probably be because there's so many teams and there's so much you have to get to that national championship game as opposed to the NFL. I mean, obviously you have to get through a lot to get to the Super Bowl there, but it just seems like like I said, to me, there's less of a stigma with losing a national championship game than there is with a Super Bowl.
Again, I think it's the team, and I think it's the coach that also puts the stigma. I mean, you look at a team like the Bills, of course, they're remembered for losing Super Bowls, and that's only because they lost 4 in a row. I mean, I can't really tell you off the top of my head who lost the Super Bowl 5 years ago. You know what I mean? So it's I don't know how much stigma is really on it.
Like, you tell me who won. I can tell you who lost. I can't go by the year. But let me see if you agree with this, because my cousin, I think, said it best. When you make the college playoff, the sense is you already won. Do you agree with that statement?
No. Okay. Because you don't win until you win.
Sure.
Like, this year, I mean, yeah, is it a successful year for Alabama? 14-1, made the national title game. But, yeah, to be honest, do you think that those kids or the coaching staff was happy with the result? No, So
well, I think back to the year, I guess it was 2013, the Manti Te'o year. What was it, when Notre Dame got there? And then they got and they got trounced in the Super Bowl, everybody was still like, you didn't really see Notre Dame get knocked down a couple pegs. Like, they were still.
Well, you did for a year or two. They weren't right for the next couple of years. It really wasn't until this season that they've bounced back to the point where they're in title contention. You know what I mean? It's not like they had the. I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it's hard to get back in the NCAA. I think it's hard to go year after year. That's why I think what Saban's done is special. Because in the pros, you could sign a guy to a 5, 6, 7-year deal. You could keep guys around. You could pay guys and have them their whole career, like a Tom Brady or an Eli Manning. In college, at max, you're going to have a kid for 4 years, maybe 5 if he redshirts. But your turnover is so great that you have to constantly be bringing in talent. You have to constantly have an eye for talent. And that's what's made Saban successful, and that's what's making Dabo Swinney successful. He recruits fantastically, and I'll tell you what, he is creating a place there in Clemson where kids want to go play. Kids are looking at Clemson going, I want to go play for that guy. He's the guy. And even more than Saban in some cases. Like last night, you heard a lot about the freshman Ross. Came up with huge catches, had an awesome day. Who's the number 1 recruit out of the state of Alabama last year, chose to go to Clemson over Alabama.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I think it's hard to get back year after year. It's hard to keep bringing back that talent. And, like this is only Clemson's 3rd national championship. Yeah, they've won 2 out of the last 3 years or 2 out of the last 4 years, but it's still only their 3rd all time.
True. And from what I heard today, it looks like this Clemson team is going to be together for at least another year or two, because it seems like
I think they're losing 1 or 2 of their key D linemen, though. But they're, again, so stacked with talent and do such a great job recruiting that they've actually lost a bunch of, I believe, D linemen in the last couple of years to the pros. And it hasn't really affected them. They play great defense. But
from what I heard, though, and correct me if I'm wrong, I guess the majority of this team is made up of freshmen and sophomores?
Yeah, they have a lot of young talent. The quarterback's a freshman. A couple of their young receivers are freshmen. They got a bunch of guys who are sophomores, like you said. And they're like I said, Dabo just keeps adding more talent. He has a top, I think, 5 or 10 recruiting class at least. I know Alabama actually has the number 1 recruiting class right now, but Clemson's up there too. And I think that they're both powerhouses for years to come. And I think, other schools are starting to lean other ways too. Like you're seeing a lot of noise about a guy, Lincoln Riley, who's the new coach of Oklahoma this year. And, he was being looked at and talked about maybe even as some possible pro jobs. That's how hot a name he's been, and it's just about keeping the talent coming. In the NFL, like I said, it's easier to keep talent around longer. So I feel like it's almost easier to get back year after year. That's why we constantly see, at least 10 straight years or more than that even. I don't know. Correct me because I'm sure I'm wrong. How long has New England won the AFC East? How many years in a row?
I'm sorry. Say that again. You cut out for a second.
I said New England. How many years have they won the AFC East in a row? At least 10, right?
Well, I think you're right on that because the 1 year they didn't was the year that Brady got hurt, right?
Yeah, but didn't Castle even go 11-5 that year?
Yeah, but they missed the playoffs that year, if I'm not mistaken. I'm gonna check that, but I think that was the year they missed the playoffs. Yeah, because that was one of the Jets' conference championships years.
Okay, yeah. Like I said, but I think it's they've won the last 10 straight though. Mm-hmm. It's just they're ridiculous, but it's because they get paid to keep the talent around. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Harder to do that in college. But.
Well, I mean, remember also, you kind of leaving out the salary cap a little bit because it's not exactly like the Patriots are doing it with the same players year in and year out. They have a system. They have a certain amount of money they're going to spend on each player, and they've been very good at knowing when to cycle players out and cycle them back in. Belichick Belichick and Brady are the only players left from all those teams that won the 3 championships in 4 years. When you think about it, and I'm on the 10 straight division championships. They're like the only 2 guys there. What Brady and Belichick have been able to do in terms of being consistent year in and year out, that's not something you see from a lot of teams in the NFL. Just because with free agency and, if you get hurt, you wind up losing a lot of clout in an organization's eyes, and there's no guaranteed contracts and all that stuff. I get the point you're making, but we also have to remember sustained success doesn't always happen in the NFL.
No, it doesn't always happen, but with smart people, it can happen.
Yeah, it can. That's true.
So, but I guess either way, either sport, or either NFL or college, I guess you could say the same. You got to keep the talent there.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're paying them or whether you're recruiting them, you got to do it one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
In some cases, you do it both ways.
True. All right. Absolutely. All right. I want to move on because I want to touch on what I was talking about before you came on the air real quick, because it's looking more and more like you're going to be right about something, and I don't like this fact that you're going to be right because, congratulations on getting back getting back Zach Britton over the weekend. I know you've seen the Mets moves that they've made over the last week, and I made the comment before you came on that it's like a duck paddling on the water. It doesn't look like he's moving very far, but you look under the water and the legs are churning 1,000 miles a minute, but he's not really going anywhere. And that's how I felt about the weekend for the Mets, where they made 3 trades, and they didn't really wind up getting too much closer to being a team that you could look at and say, this is a playoff team right here. They've made a lot of depth moves over the last month, and my worry, and every day as we get closer to spring training, it's looking like it's going to be a reality. They made some decent moves to start the offseason, and now they got these depth moves that they're bringing in. Gregor Blanco, Raji Davis, Keon Broxton, Hector Santiago, J.D. Davis, guys you never heard of before, guys who are past their prime. They're going to take these guys, and they're going to try to pass them off as legitimate starters when they don't want to spend the money on the legitimate starters. So if you want to gloat a little bit, you go right ahead, because right now, as much as I said a couple weeks ago, I thought this had been the most exciting offseason we've seen from the Mets in the last few years. Now we're getting to the point where it's the same old Mets.
Well, I mean, I don't have to gloat. You said it for me. Same old Mets.
Yes.
I'm more worried about when my Yankees going to start spending some more of that money. I mean, I like Britain, but they got more signings to do before we're done. I mean, you guys, like I said, it's the Mets. Unfortunately, they instead of doing what's right by the fan base and spending the money the right way, they're going to try to piece together a bunch of crap and polish a turd and serve it to the fan base as, oh, look, we gave a shit, when really they didn't. They didn't try. They didn't care for you.
Here's the thing. They are like 2 degrees from going from turd to diamond. 2 degrees. That's really all it is. It's a very thin line. They just have to tiptoe over it, and you get from turd to diamond like that. You need one more bullpen arm, and you need a legitimate starting center fielder. Keon Broxton is not a legitimate starting center fielder. It is not that big of a difference. It's like,
but there's no starting center fielders out there now. Even who's left?
Well, it's the same guy who was out there 3 weeks ago. It's AJ Pollock if you don't want to spend the money on Bryce Harper. And from what I heard, Pollock still wants like a 7-year deal. If that number comes down and the Mets decide to give it to him, hey, great. Give him the 3 or 4 year deal. We talked about the difference between $60 and $70 million. I'd give it to him. You can't do what you always do and use guys who are supposed to be your 4th or 5th outfielder or your organizational depth and pass them off as legit starting players and then act like you got the best team in the division, especially when the Phillies are still in the running for Manny Machado and Bryce Harper, or both of them, and then the Nationals are still on Bryce Harper too. It's just unreal on that. But as far as you guys and spending money, I ask myself the same question. What do you want them to spend money on? You still have a great lineup. You got Troy Tulowitzki playing shortstop for you until Didi Gregorius gets back. You have a decent starting rotation. What you need, like one or two more bullpen guys at most.
No, we need two more bullpen guys. And, I mean, you're right. We don't need it, but let's get Machado or Harper. We don't need it, but why not? They got to go somewhere, and they're obviously haven't picked a spot yet. So
Well,
there's no reason they wouldn't want to come play for us. I just think that we haven't, I don't think they've, worked out the right numbers yet, but I want them to open up to somebody. I'll be honest, the more I think about it, I would rather keep Andujar and get a guy like Harper because I don't care necessarily about hurting Brett Gardner's feelings about playing time. He should know he's more there to be a bench guy, a role model guy, a locker room guy, and a fill-in guy, pinch runner, pinch hitter.
You also got Aaron Hicks. You have Aaron Hicks.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Then you would have an outfield rotation of Hicks, Stanton, Judge, and Harper. You could rotate the guys around. Stanton will play some more DH. I'm sure he's not opposed to that.
Yeah, but you still want to put Sanchez at DH. You don't want to fill up that designated hitter spot.
No, listen, Sanchez can catch for right now. I'll be honest. I'm not as worried about Sanchez catching as everybody else. I think he'll be just fine. Let him be behind the plate. We know he's not the best defensive catcher out there, but we don't need the best defensive catcher out there because what he does with the bat is what we really need him for. I'm okay with that. I really am, and I think you put him back there. If he DHs, some games, I don't know. I'm not opposed to that, but I don't know. Not a fan of the idea.
Well, two things real quick. For what it's worth, Cousin David, who, as you know, is a Yankee fan, he's saying Yankees should stand pat, maybe one more in the bullpen. I don't want Machado or Harper. I don't want the Yankees of 1996 to 2001 to become the Yankees of 2002 to 2008, which I think is a somewhat valid point. But I also want to point out –
these guys are young enough, though. This isn't spending on old talent. This isn't spending a bunch of money on guys who are already 30. These guys are only like 25, 26 years old.
No, but you're right. But
and given I don't know, I don't see it that way because even by the time they hit 33, which will be towards the end of their contracts, they're still going to be decent players. You can't tell me either of these guys' talent's just going to fall off a cliff.
Listen,
they're two of the best players in the game.
I don't think the concern is necessarily the talent level. I think the concern is more the personalities you bring in. Because Machado, we know his downside with his attitude and not always hustling and all that stuff. I'm sorry, that's not going to play in New York. And then you have Harper, who, let's not forget, he did get choked by a teammate in the dugout. And neither of them have ever really – I mean, Machado had the run with the Dodgers, but I think that was more the Dodgers than him per se. Harper's never won a playoff series. So you have that.
That's all right. You have that, but listen, here's the way I look at it. Would I rather see him go to a team like Boston than have to play him 19 times a year? Would I rather see either of them go someplace where I have to play them in the American League? I got to be honest. I'd rather him play for me than have to play against them.
Dude, if you went to the White Sox, you'd be fine with it because it's not like the White Sox would do anything.
But again, why do you
I
don't think the White Sox are really in it. I'll be honest. I don't think the White Sox are really in the mix. I think the Phillies are definitely in the mix.
Yeah.
I think there's a few teams in the mix. I bet you the Dodgers are somewhere in the mix. I know Boston's inquired. You know they have. I don't care what anybody says.
Well, I don't think Boston would take either of them right now. They have a good.
I don't think they would, but I just think they'd inquire. I bet you they got a lot of people that I don't know. I think they're very talented, and I'd rather them play with us than against us.
Well, I've been wanting to say this for a couple of minutes now. I don't know if you remember, a couple of weeks ago there was a rumor that the Phillies, who have made overtures to both these guys, pretty sure they got offers on the table to both of these guys. And the sense was that apparently Machado and Harper really don't want to go to Philadelphia. That apparently both of them would rather go to the Yankees, but it doesn't seem like the Yankees made the offer that would top the Phillies offer just yet. So there's that. Even though I got to be honest, I kind of thought this Machado thing would be over now that we're in the new year. I really thought this was going to be done within the last week. So I'm surprised this is right.
I'm saying it could go into February now.
I mean, more and more, that's what's happening with these big name guys. I mean, JD Martinez didn't. When did JD Martinez sign last year? That was like January, right?
Yeah, it was late.
Yeah. All right. Let's move to football. Unless any final thoughts on baseball before we move on.
No, I'm just still waiting for the Harper and Machado shoes to drop, I think. And I'm pumped. I'm just ready for the season.
And I'm gonna say what I've been saying. Add one more bullpen guy, add a legitimate center fielder. I would take Justin Wilson in the bullpen. I'd take AJ Pollock in the center field. Get those two guys. It's been a really good offseason. You don't, and Harper or Machado wind up signing with the Phillies. Guess what? You're back in third and fourth place. So, all right, let's move on. Let's go to football here. So, based off of our predictions from last week, you had one right. You had two right, if I'm not mistaken, off the predictions. Because I think I picked the Colts, Seahawks, Ravens, and I think we both picked the Bears to win. And the winners wound up being the Colts, the Cowboys, and the Chargers and the Eagles. So
yeah, and I had the Chargers and the Cowboys.
You did have the Chargers and the Cowboys, and you had the Texans, and like I said, we both had the Bears. So of the upsets, and we'll say now. Well, actually, I think all of them can be considered upsets in some way, shape, or form. There. What was the biggest shocker to you on that one?
I don't think any were necessarily shockers. Indy's played great football lately, especially down the stretch. Andrew Luck's hot. And, I think that it's, that game didn't necessarily surprise me as much as I just thought Houston was a better team than that. We're keeping at least closer.
See, I
guess I was wrong. I guess I was wrong on that one.
Well, I'll tell you this. Hey, it's been the same thing for me the last few years, even before Watson came in. I can't take the Texans seriously. Like, I think it was the year that Brady got suspended for the 4 games for the deflate game, where the Texans started off 2-0. They're playing Jacoby Brissett, leading the Patriots on Thursday night, and they get utterly destroyed and manhandled by them. And just since that time, I have not been able to take that team seriously.
All right.
Yeah, so.
I can see that. I mean, but I don't know. I'd taken them more seriously this year. I thought they had a little more figured out. I had a little more faith in Deshaun Watson. Clemson alum, by the way. I think I even saw he was at the game last night. But, no, I don't know. That game didn't necessarily surprise me. But the Charger game didn't surprise me because I picked it. So
Eric, hang on 1 second. I want to welcome someone in right now. Dave Hastings is here. Should have brought him on a couple minutes ago, apparently. But Dave, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm good. I'm good. But really quick, literally there's 5 minutes left in the show, and that was the first mention of last night's national championship game.
Huh? Oh, no, we have more than 5 minutes left, actually. We have about 10 minutes left.
Okay, but was that the first mention of the national championship game?
Oh, we actually talked about it.
No, I talked about it.
Oh, okay. I'm like, the way I heard you say, and Clemson won, by the way, I'm like, wait, is that really the first time we're talking about it?
No, we kind of went
Alabama got outplayed. Clemson was a better team. I tipped my hat to them. Dabo Sweeney's a hell of a coach. We talked about it for a few minutes. Yeah, I addressed it. I ain't afraid of it. I'm still a Bama fan, and like I said to Mike, we've still won 5 out of the last 10 years, and we've been there 7 times, so can't really complain.
Oh, Eric, I know you'll always be Roll Tide. I'll never doubt that for a breath, but I just personally, I mean, to me, the biggest thing I thought of was asking you if you felt it was more talent than Alabama, or was Saban actually outcoached by Sweeney?
I don't think it was either. I think it was just more heart and desire. I think that team was hungry after losing last year, and they wanted it this year. That defense wanted it, and I'll tell you what, the defensive coach, and I don't know how much Sweeney's involved defensively. I know he was an offensive guy, former wide receiver, so that's why. But the guy Venable, who runs the defense there for Clemson, I mean, put together one hell of a scheme that really flustered and confused Tua to start the game. I mean, he threw that early pick six. I mean, Bama really should have just kept running the ball. They were picking up 5, 6, 8 yards at a clip running the ball. I don't know why they kind of got away from that at times. I would have stuck with it, controlled the clock, and kept the game close, but that's just me. They didn't go that route, and Tua struggled yesterday. And I really give the credit to the defense and the defensive coordinator for Clemson.
Yeah, I could see that. And the only other thing I wanted to just see what your thoughts were is your opinion on the Clemson quarterback.
He's fantastic. He's
like
special.
Long-term,
he's NFL ready
fantastic?
right now. I'll be honest. What?
Like long-term fantastic?
I think so. He's got the size, 6'5", 216. Strong enough to take the hits. Big enough to actually, put a hurting on some maybe safeties and linebackers out there. He's NFL ready now, I think. I mean, size-wise, maturity-wise. I mean, he played great. He outplayed Tua yesterday. I mean, I said this to Mike earlier. He wasn't even in the Heisman contention, but, I mean, he was clearly the better quarterback on the field last night. And he was special, and I think he's going to continue to be. He's a freshman, so they have him for at least 2 more seasons. You're going to see Clemson in the playoffs, and I wouldn't doubt I'd put my money on Clemson being back in the title game at least once, if not both, of the next 2 years.
How nice would it be to see him and Tua go up against each other at least one more time? I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean, right now they're 2-2 against each other. And there are 4 meetings in the last few years.
That's pretty awesome. My bad, I know you guys were talking playoff games, but I just had to make sure that wasn't the first time the game was discussed.
Well, the other stat too is I think it's over the last 4 years. I think it's 4 years. Each team is 54-4.
54.
Both have identical records.
Oh, wow.
And they both have played each other 4 times, and they're 2-2 in those 2 times. So I mean, they're pretty well, matched. And I was telling Mike earlier that I think Dabo Sweeney's done one hell of a job there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Dave,
back to the NFL.
Yeah, let's go back to the NFL. But now that I have a fellow Cowboy fan here, let's start off with the horrific injury to Allen Hurns. And because I want to bring that up, because I saw that play. Dude, I don't know how he thinks he's going to be ready for opening day after that injury.
I mean, the injury was really bad. I mean, the tackle itself was basically a horse collar, so you're not surprised that the injury actually happened. There's one of a couple different plays that I thought were kind of dirty by Seattle that got caught. But in all honesty, if there's one thing I understand about football, there's some dirty crap that happens in that game on both sides. So I'm not going to sit here and act like Dallas was walking around with halos over their head during that game. I just, obviously the media I follow didn't point out any of the things they might have done. But yeah, I mean, dude, that's a rough injury for a tough guy. I mean, look, he's been a team player all year long. He's really not gotten anywhere near the amount of snaps I think he was hoping to get. And to not be able to play in a playoff game where, Beasley was dealing with injury as well, I think it just kind of sucks for the guy. But, for him, you wish him the best of the luck. Hope he, is able to return. And the good news, Dallas-wise salary cap, they signed him to a 2-year deal. So if they had to let him go, it's not going to hurt their cap number going into the offseason. And, he gets his money no matter what, and his health care coverage taken care of. So it's not like if he got cut, he's getting left to the birds to be broke and have to pay all his medical bills. So either way, it sucks that it happened, but Dallas got the win, and that's all I paid attention to when it was all said and done.
Yeah, it was nice to see that. It was a little bit of vindication for Tony Romo. The only way, even I'll tell you this, Sebastian Janikowski going down really changed that game, because when they tried that onside kick at the end, you really got to wonder if it was Janikowski and if it would have been a better kick on that. Because when the guy does the drop kick, it goes straight up in the air, and you could just see the look on Pete Carroll's face. Janikowski going out early with the hamstring injury kind of changes the complexion of that game.
You don't have to wonder on the idea or the fact or the thought of that onside kick would have been better if Janikowski did it. Yeah. I probably could have kicked a better onside kick than what that was. I mean, as a fan watching that game, rooting for Dallas, knowing that the way Seattle kind of turned momentum in the last, quarter, you kind of knew that they couldn't. Dallas was not in good shape if they recovered that. And to me, I just smiled as soon as I saw that ball go straight up in the air. I'm like, oh, that's it. If you drop, I mean, that's like fielding a really bad punt. So I just smiled.
True. All right, so we got about a little under 7.5 minutes left here. Let's fly through the Sunday games real quick. Did anybody really think Lamar Jackson was going to look that overmatched in that game against the Chargers? And Eric, let's go back to you on that.
Oh, okay. The Chargers, I think, were ready for him a second time around. They saw him a couple weeks ago. I think they had film on him. They played him. They came out with a great scheme, and I honestly would have thought about switching to Flacco in the second half. They didn't do that, I'm guessing, but, I don't know.
No.
Not necessarily, a big shock to me. I think the Chargers, like I said, were ready. I don't know. I predicted it, so I thought I saw it coming.
All right. Dave, what do you say?
I mean, I think the biggest story out of that, ending outside of, heads up, congratulations to the Chargers. You don't want to take anything away from them. But I think the biggest thing to me that came out of that game was that they should have switched to Flacco in the second half. The Chargers weren't game planned for that. And yes, it's probably not a very hard adjustment to, go back to a pocket passing quarterback, but your entire season's on the line. This isn't, week 4. So you go with your veteran quarterback who's been there and done that before, and you try to win a playoff game and move on to the next round, not, make sure your rookie knows the job is his and, deal with the learning moment. So I think that really, to me, was the bigger story out of it. And look, we all know Lamar Jackson's the future in Baltimore, at least for the time being, and Flacco's gone. But either way, you're trying to win a game right now. That's stuff for next season and the off season, like not right now. So I don't think that was a smart move by Harbaugh. And like Eric said, man, bottom line is Chargers were ready for it. Their scheme was perfectly planned, and what better way to end the game than with a sack fumble recovery? So that was I wasn't overly shocked by the outcome of that game. I was more shocked by Harbaugh not manning up and making the change.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to skip the Eagles and Bears game because we've got about 5 minutes left, and I want to be able to get all of our picks in for the 4 games here. So let's look at the Saturday games this week. You got Indy taking on the Chiefs. This should be a really good game, right? Andrew Luck versus Patrick.
Wait, Mike, hold on. I'm sorry. The Eagles-Bears game, you can't just skip it. I understand we got to move. But
I agree with Dave, because how can you not talk about Cody Parkey or Parker or whatever his name is? Cody Parkey?
Yeah, Parkey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. Like, I get it. We got to make our picks cool, but really quick, though, man. Hell of a job by Nick Foles. Khalil Mack kind of was non-existent in that game. Cody Parkey makes the kick before the timeout and then doinks it. Yes, I think there's proof that the Eagles got a fingertip on it. Either way, infamy in Chicago, that's just brutal. And more importantly, like everybody else is talking about, you got to pose the question, if some way, somehow, Nick Foles does it all over again, do you ride with him and trade Wentz, or do you let him, or like, what do you do there? I personally say you go with Wentz, and you have to let Foles go. We've seen him as a 16-game starter. You know what he actually is, whether he shines in these moments or not. He can't get you there, and that's the point. So I'm riding with Wentz long-term over Foles, but I'm sorry, I had to say something about that game.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I agree with you though. I think you kind of have to keep Wentz and let Foles go because I agree. Dave, Eric, I'll give you real quick. You got anything else you want to throw in there?
No, I agree with both of you. You got to keep Wentz, let Foles go. But, I mean, he's had a hell of a run, I agree. Not a 16-game starter, but in these moments, he seems to be special.
Yeah. All right. So now let's go to these picks real quick. And we got about 3 minutes left here. Chiefs and Colts, like I said, should be a really good game. I really want to go with the upset here. I really do. But it's in Kansas City. I'm going to go with the Chiefs here, though. I think they've been playing really well the whole season. So, Dave, go ahead.
Andy Reid tends to let down in the playoffs when he has a really good season. I'm going to go with the Colts. I think they're just on a special ride right now, and I don't know if there's really anybody in the AFC at this point I think is going to take them out.
All right. Eric, who you got?
You go first. I'm still deciding.
Oh, we both went. I said Chiefs.
I didn't hear yours.
Chiefs.
I'm taking the Chiefs at home.
Okay. Dallas and Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, I think the Cowboys have a legitimate shot here. But at the end of the day, I'm going to say the Rams at home. They went 7-1 at home, and the Cowboys only went 3-5 on the road. So I'm going with the Rams. Dave, who you got?
I'm going with them. Give me the Cowboys.
Your lips to God's ears. Eric, who you got?
I want to roll that way too with you, Dave, because I want to root for you, but I just can't do it. They're not going to win this game.
The Jason Garrett Divisional Round curse continues.
Yeah, that sounds about right. All right, Chargers going into New England to take on the Patriots. I didn't do it last week. I'm going with the upset this week. What the hell? I'm saying the Chargers win this game. Look at the way they played last week. Look at the way they've been playing last month. I'm going with that. Dave, who you got?
I'm sorry, I can't go against New England in Brady, Belichick, Foxborough playoffs. I'm going with New England.
All right, Eric, who you got?
I'm going the same way. I can't go against Brady right now.
Okay.
Can't do it.
And very quickly, we got about a minute left. Eagles in New Orleans. Get rid of the Eagles. I'm going with the Saints. Dave, who you got?
Yeah, I know we talked about Foles having his magical ride again, but Drew Brees has never lost in the playoffs playing in the Superdome, and I don't think that happens against Philly. I don't think it's a blowout like it was a couple weeks ago, but I think that the Saints are just too high powered on offense for the Eagles to keep up.
All right, Eric, who you got? Real quick.
The last time the Saints won the Super Bowl, they went 13-3, had a home field advantage, and the three teams they lost to were the exact same three teams they lost to this season. So for that reason, I don't know. I'm believing in Drew Brees, and I'm believing in the Saints this week. They march in.
All right. So that's going to do it for us tonight here. Dave, glad you could make it back, my friend. Eric Tressler, thank you so much. And Dave Hastings, thank you once again. And I am Mike Aglioloro, and we will see you all next week.